Hi, I'm Rob. Welcome to your Daily Constitution. I am coming to you from the Rethink Home Studios in Anchorage, Alaska. So if you have a moment, take a look at rethinkhome.net. We have a lot of really cool stuff in here. There is furniture, there is a ton of artwork, and all kinds of just interesting things from all around the world. So if you have a moment, rethinkhome.net. Come by us if you're here in Anchorage at 322 Fireweed Lane. So, as I said, this is your daily Constitution, where we're going to take a little bit of the Constitution each day and read it. We'll look at it an article at a time, section by section, and just take a short video each day until we get all the way through it. We're going to read it straight through. We'll look at when items are changed by amendments, but we're not going to go look at those amendments until we get to the amendment section, and then we'll go back and look at what they changed. So, sit back and enjoy, and let's get started with your daily Constitution. The 25th Amendment. Man, have we really heard about the 25th Amendment over these last 6 years? It's come up a lot. So let's take a look and see what exactly it is. Section 1, in case of, let's go up here so you can see it. In case of the removal of president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Okay. Makes sense. Section 2. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. A majority vote. Section 3. Whenever the president transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the vice president as acting president. Okay. Section 4. Here is the section that gets a little crazy, or could potentially. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office of acting president. Thereafter, when the president transmits to the pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office, unless the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive department, and if you a little footnote there, footnote. So in original, probably should be departments. Yeah, exactly. Or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, which they have not, transmit within 4 days to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duty of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours of that purpose, if not in session. If the Congress, within 21 days after receipt of the latter written declaration, or if Congress is not in session within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 vote of both houses that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office, the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. Otherwise, president shall resume powers and duties of his office. So that is the one that could get into craziness. So, amendment was proposed by the 89th Congress by Senate Joint Resolution number 1, which was approved by the Senate on February 19th, 1965, and by the House of Representatives in amended form on April 13th, 1965. And wow, so that did not take very long at all. The House of Representatives agreed to a conference report on June 30th, 1965. The Senate agreed to the conference report on June 1965. was declared by the Administrator of General Services on February 23rd, 1967. Okay, so ratification took a year and a half or so to be ratified by legislatures 39 of the 50 states. So let's go through them. All right, in 1965, let's go down here. So in 1965, ratified by Nebraska on July 12th, Wisconsin July 13th, Oklahoma July 15th, Massachusetts August 9th, Pennsylvania August 18th, Kentucky September 15th, Arizona September 22nd, Michigan October 5th, Indiana October 20th, California October 21st, Arkansas November 4th, New Jersey November 29th, Delaware December 7th, Utah, January 17th, 1966. We're into the 66s now. West Virginia, January 20th. Maine, January 24th. Rhode Island, January 28th. Colorado, February 3rd. New Mexico, February 3rd. Kansas, February 8th. Vermont, February 10th. Alaska, February 18th. Idaho, March 2nd. Hawaii, March 3rd. Oh, Hawaii's first one. Virginia, March 8th. Mississippi, March 10th. New York, March 14th, Maryland, March 23rd, Missouri, March 30th, New Hampshire, June 13th, Louisiana, July 5th, Tennessee, January 12th, Wyoming, January 12th. We're in the 67 now. So it went from July 5th, 1966 to January 12th, 1967. Wyoming, January 25th. And then Washington, January 26th, Iowa, January 26th, Oregon, February 2nd, Minnesota, February 10th, and Nevada, February 10th. It was then declared an amendment. A ratification was completed on February 10th, 1967, and it was subsequently ratified by Connecticut, Montana, South Dakota, Ohio, Alabama, North Carolina, Illinois, Texas, and Florida. All right, so that is the amendment. Now let's take a little peek at why. All right, so the 25th Amendment seeks to answer questions raised by the original Constitution's treatment of presidential, vice presidential vacancies and presidential disability. And so it took till the 60s for them to come up with it and say, okay, maybe we should decide this thing. It talks about William Henry Harrison, who was in office 20 some days, I think, is the shortest president ever. When he died in 1841, Vice President John Tyler forcefully asserted that he had become president. Although Congress accepted the result, there was a lot of back and forth as to whether it was actually, some disputed Tyler's reading of the presidential succession clause in the Constitution. So this amendment set up what happens. And then, the second thing was a vice president, because a lot of times there was no vice president. So it says the year the vice presidency office was unoccupied more than 20% of the time. And then what happens third if the president becomes unable to discharge the powers and duties? Several presidents suffered debilitating illnesses and injuries for weeks and months at a time. The country was left without effective, accountable presidential leadership. So it does say, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 6, provided for the vice president to step in when the president had an inability to discharge his powers and duties, but it provided no decision maker, no procedures, and no definition of inability. So this kind of clears it up a little bit. They mentioned the assassination of President Kennedy. He brought a renewed attention to these questions. Led by Senator Burt Bay, Congress gave them focused consideration. In July 1965, sent the 25th Amendment to the states for ratification. Less than 2 years, the necessary 38th state legislature ratified it. So in response to the question regarding vice presidential inability, sections 3 and 4 of the 25th Amendment established two procedures for transferring authority to the vice president as acting president. Building on the Eisenhower Nixon. So what, when president removed from office, when President Nixon resigned in 1974, Vice President Gerald Ford became president under Section 1. So it's been used a few times. Section 3 allows president to transfer authority. So Ronald Reagan did it once when he had to go under surgery, and President Bush did it twice while he was under surgery. So then Section 4 addresses the dramatic case of a president who may be unable to fill his constitutional role, but who cannot or will not step aside. It provides both a decision maker and a procedure. And the initial deciding group is the vice president and a majority of either the cabinet or some other body that Congress may designate, though Congress has never done so. They do have the power. They could set up a something that would, be able to step in and declare the president unfit. But that, I don't know, that would take quite a doing to get anything like that through Congress these days. So anyway, Section 3 and especially Section 4 are long and complicated by constitutional standards, but they nevertheless leave a number of issues unsettled. Most significant, what counts as presidential inability. At the Constitutional Convention in 1787, Delegate John Dickinson asked, what is the extent of term disability in the proposed presidential succession clause, and who is to be the judge of it? No response is recorded. By giving the president, vice president, Congress important distinct roles, the framers of the 25th Amendment went a long way towards answering the second part of Dickinson's question, rather than try to resolve the first part. So they kind of just said, all right, we'll leave it up to these folks to decide. But anyway, all right, thank you very much. We got 2 more to go, and then we'll start doing some other cool stuff. So, all right, thank you very much. Have a good night.